Hi, my name's Andy. Welcome to Really Random Reads. Today, something a little bit different. I'm going to be sharing with you 6 ways in which I know or think I know a novel is good. This idea came to me when I was doing a video recently chatting about a novel called Never Let Me Go. I'll put a link on the screen. And that's where the first one kind of popped into my mind. And then after I did that video, I thought, there's a few more there. Scribbled them down and thought I'd talk about them today. So number one, and I mentioned it in that Never Let Me Go video, but let me say it here as well, and these are in no particular order, but it's when I begin to debate the character motivations as if those characters were actually real people. Now this might be in my head with myself, it might be with somebody else who's read the book, might even be with people on here. Another time I've noticed this though, is if somebody has written a draft of a novel, let's say, or a short story, and they're trying to workshop it up, they're trying to get it as good as they can get it to be, and the people in that workshop who are giving them feedback and helping them, they start debating the character motivations rather than sort of like, I'm hesitant to use the word technical, but like the technical things, if you like, about the writing, the storytelling. If that happens, I tend to think that's a really good sign, because the implication of that, in my mind at least, is those people have bought into the illusion of that make-believe world. So when I find myself doing that with novels like Never Let Me Go, or when I hear sort of people on the tube or whatever kind of doing it, I think, okay, that's an indication, or one of the indicators, that that's probably a really good book. The second one might seem quite obvious in a way. It's that I feel the urge to recommend the book to people. Example where that's been the case would be Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. One of the reasons, or another reason I want to share that, so I remember somebody saying to me a few years ago about how when she recommends that book to people, like she's done it a few times and sort of seen them actually reading it, she likes to watch people's reactions, as in their physical reactions, when halfway through that book, the big plot twist comes and everything turns on its head. So there's the second one. Number 3 is if I feel trepidatious about the idea, and this is quite a new one to me because I've only had this Booktube channel since like December 2024, but if I feel trepidatious about the idea of doing a video about the book. Now, why would that be the case? In terms of these books I'm talking about, these novels, which I think are good, it's because I'm worried I'm not going to be able to do them justice. Even in terms of sharing something of the positive experience I've had with them, I feel I'm going to do them a disservice or sell them short. I had that with a video I made about the novel Moby Dick by Herman Melville, and I think that was, I'm running my own channel down here, but I think that was justified. I don't think I did that novel justice in that video at all. And I have it with intending to do one soon talking about The Mayor of Casterbridge by Thomas Hardy, which I unexpectedly really enjoyed. I'm a Thomas Hardy fan, but I didn't think I would enjoy that book as much as I did. Number 4 is if somebody asks me, what is it about? If I really struggle to answer or just go blank, despite having engaged with the book on a deep level, maybe for a prolonged period of time, maybe haven't even really read it, if that happens to me, then that's usually an indicator for me that the book is really good. I know that might seem a bit weird, it might seem a bit contradictory. I think part of it might go to that thing of I'm attracted to novels, or I think a novel really, if I'm honest, should be about showing a problem really well rather than prescribing solutions. And if I was picking up, say, like a party manifesto of a political party, what I would be looking for in that is sort of like bang, 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 here's the answers, here's what we should, think we should do, and be able to kind of like remember that. But with a novel, what I'm looking for is to kind of experiencing, with all the complexities and all the nuance, a problem, and to walk away and be like, yeah, I've read this Charles Dickens book, the problem is poverty. Then, a good novel for me is more complicated. I'm going to give an example here, which isn't actually a novel, but reads like a novel, on a book I've talked about several times, and again, feel I've never been able to do justice to what it is that's just so magical about this book. That is Ron Chernow's biography of Ulysses Grant. It's called Grant. Grant was a Civil War general and an American president He went through many, many failures in his life and managed to distill all of that into phenomenal success. I, might be getting to controversial territory again here, as a Civil War general. However, even now, as I'm trying to explain it to you, I'm conscious I'm not doing a very good job of it. I found that book deeply moving. I returned to it. Watch interviews with Ron Chernow if you're interested on YouTube. It is a phenomenal. You'll get a taste quite quickly of why it's such an engaging read. But I really struggle, if you ask me, what is it that you like so much about that book? What's it about even? I struggle to do justice in terms of giving you an answer. I struggle to do justice to the book. Fifth point, or fifth indicator if you like, is that when I've read the book, or while I'm reading it and nearing the end, I don't want to leave the world. Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, the sort of series of books that starts with the Game of Thrones, felt that with that. So actually I think I started feeling that by watching the TV series, and then I read the books. Also with John le Carré's novels about George Smiley. So George Smiley is a character that we meet at the start of the Cold War and throughout it. It's their espionage novels. Really brilliant description of George Smiley in one of the first books as George Smiley, one of the meek who would not inherit the earth. So if you think of like the polar opposite of a James Bond type character, yes. So all of those books. Another indicator of this is his son brought out a book called Carla's Choice. George le Carré is dead now. Last year, his son brought out Carla's Choice. And it's a kind of a prequel. It sort of comes after the first book or two, the first novel or two featuring George Smiley. And would I have picked that up if it hadn't have been for George Smiley? Would I have picked up this prequel by his son? No. And having read it, would I now be reading The Honourable Schoolboy, which is a really thick sort of, it's probably the John le Carré novel, particularly, almost certainly in terms of the George Smiley books, where it's the one people tend to have the most problems with. It's quite bulky. People say it could lose 100 to 200 pages. But I've gone back into it because even knowing that, to be honest, agreeing with it, I like that world so much that I'm happy for that overindulgence that the writer had. So not wanting to leave the world is a big indicator for me. And finally, indicator number 6 of when I know a book has been good. And you can pull me up here, right, quite, with some justification, because at the start of this video, I didn't define my terms. I didn't say, this is what I think makes a good novel. I'm just giving you indicators of when I think a novel is good. But let's just go with it. So point number 6, indicator number 6, it's when the book becomes a part of me, or when the book becomes a part of someone. And I think that could be taken in lots of different ways. It might be, I can't think of an example, but there have been times when I've read a book and found myself kind of unconsciously copying certain characters' traits, or trying to think about the world in a certain way through the lens of a particular character. Almost in relation to that, I think is the example I'm going to give here, which is A Little Life. So in the course of this novel, A Little Life, very unpleasant things happen to a character. He experiences numerous different episodes of abuse by different people. And how do I know that I kind of like absorbed that book, took it in, and that it became, to use this sort of pretentious phrase, a part of me? It's that I think about it so regularly, first of all. I probably think about that book most days, but also I carry forward or carry into my interactions some of the perspective that book gave me, perhaps subconsciously, but also often quite consciously. So one of the things I really like about that novel is it doesn't have a kind of, oh, he got fixed arc. Like he had all these terrible things happen to him, but then he had loads of therapy and he was fine, he was fixed. That I really enjoy, which sounds a strange thing to say, given all the suffering in that book, but I like the fact that that was not the arc of the novel. I think that showed the problem of that situation and what happened to that character really well. I'm tempted to say that person, by the way, which would be an indicator of one of the the ones I said earlier, the first one, in fact, that you start talking about the characters as if they're real people. So when to round off this point number 6, when I encounter situations sometimes these days, which I find particularly trying, and when I feel particularly provoked, then on my good days, I remember some of the experiences that I had reading that book, and I'm perhaps just a little bit more sort of sympathetic and patient with people. By God, not always, and yesterday actually would have been a case in point, but it does happen. And I think that is because having absorbed that book, sort of, again, that pretentious phrase, kind of made it a part of me to some degree. So there's my 6 indicators of when I think a novel is good. Would be interested to know whether these are common things to you as well, whether any resonate with you, but also what yours are. You might have 6 different ones, you might have 20 different ones. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you're all good, and catch you soon, folks. Bye. You know what, maybe I should have called this video 6 ways that I know I've really enjoyed a book, rather than a book is really good. But there we go.